Okay, so are we just going to do this forever? I assume yes. I assume there will be Omicron. And then we'll move on to whatever the next letter of the Greek alphabet is. And we'll just keep going. 5 years from now, there will be a new variant. We'll be like, wow, this one's even more transmissible than the last one. We'll be like, yeah, but nobody's dying. People will be, and all of our leaders will be like, yes, but it's more transmissible. Like, but no one's dying. Nope, more transmissible. This is insanity. Okay, now the reason, again, that I'm focused in on the deadliness is because who cares if it's more transmissible if there aren't more people getting hospitalized and dying? Okay, right now, and it's amazing. The authorities we are supposed to listen to are the people who know the least. Okay, so I'm going to give you the person who knows the most. Okay, this is the South African doctor, Angelique Coetzee. She identified Omicron in South Africa. Here she is explaining what Omicron is and what it is not.
The overall patients that was recorded yesterday was 3,000 and around about 3,700. So our positivity rate is 9.2%. It is more than we would have loved it to be. But looking at the mildness of the symptoms that we are seeing, currently there's no reason for panicking as we don't see severely ill patients.
So then what in the hell are we talking about? We're shutting down the globe again. The stock markets are dumping because they're afraid that all these morons who run our governments are just going to shut everything down. And the doctor who discovered the variant in South Africa is like, yeah, we're seeing mild disease. No increase in hospitalizations, no increase in deaths. Are you all insane? Have you all lost your damn? The answer is they love the control. They love it so much. And they know, again, that the political arena is stacked in favor of control. You want your politicians to, and you know what? It's our fault. It's our fault. We, as individual human beings living in democracies, we want our leaders to do something, save us, protect us. Here's the thing. They can't. They cannot. The only thing that our leadership was capable of doing during this entire pandemic was throwing money at the big pharma companies, and big pharma companies came up with an answer. So that's it. Those are all the things. That is what government has been able to do. But you out there, you somehow think that if your leader tells you to stay home, your leader has done you a favor. Your leader has not done you a favor. Your leader's an idiot. Your leader knows less than this doctor. Yeah, I'm listening to the science. She's a doctor. Is she not the science? But no, we're supposed to listen to Dr. Anthony Fauci, who again has pretzeled himself into a human Ouroboros by shoving his head so far up his ass it's coming out his head again. We're supposed to listen to him, who's been wrong every single step of the pandemic, but not the lady who discovered Omicron. Not that lady. You can't listen to her because she's saying it's a mild disease. Over in the UK, they're going to boost mask wearing. They said that anyone arriving in England must take a PCR test for COVID-19 on the second day after the arrival and self-isolate until they provide a negative test. If someone tests positive for the Omicron variant, he said their close contacts will also have to self-isolate for 10 days, regardless of vaccination status. Okay, regardless of vaccination status. So before, if somebody was a close contact, got COVID, and you were vaccinated, you didn't have to isolate. Now, because of Omicron, they have to isolate. Okay, meanwhile, many countries have slapped restrictions on various southern African countries, including Australia, Brazil, Canada, the EU, Iran, Japan, New Zealand, Thailand, and the United States. Also, I should note here that Israel actually shut its borders to all travelers again. So that was great. They were open for like 12 hours. And then the Israeli government, because again, all politics is stacked in favor of lockdown fanatics. The Israeli government was like, no one comes in again. And by the way, if you do come in, and you get a special dispensation, the way that it works in Israel, you have to take a PCR test. You have to stay in a quarantine hotel until you take the PCR and get the results. Then, even if you come up negative, you have to quarantine for a week, wherever you're going, until you take a second negative PCR test. Everyone has lost their minds. You wonder why the markets are dumping? It is not because of Omicron. It's the markets are dumping because the markets recognize that a bunch of political leaders who are stupider than your typical kitchen sink are running the place. How much is politics infusing how we do public health these days? You know why this thing is called Omicron? You know why? The reason why is because they didn't want to name it Nu. Okay, Nu was the next one in the Greek alphabet. And they were afraid that people are stupid enough to think that if it was called the new variant, they'd be like, oh, you mean the new variant, like N-E-W. So even if they had, who cares? But the real reason is because the one after that is Xi. Okay? Xi, which is the Greek letter, Xi, it is spelled X-I. And you know what else is spelled X-I? The name of China's leader, Xi Jinping. Okay, so even though they are not hourly different, right? A-U-R-A-L-L-Y. They're not oral. They sound different to the ear. When you spell them, they look the same, right? The Greek letter Xi is spelled X-I, and so is Xi Jinping. And so who was like, well, we don't want to remind people that this thing came from China. That would cause racism. You people. A spokesperson, Tarek Jasarevic, said, quote, "New is too easily confounded with new. And Xi was not used because it is a common last name." Oh, really? Is that what this is? You know, Delta is kind of a common name too. Like we have an entire airline called Delta here in the United States. I noticed. Also, Alpha is a pretty commonly used term. So's Beta. So's Gamma. I'm noticing that your sudden shyness about using the Greek alphabet started right about the time that your Chinese paymasters got uptight. Maybe we should call it the Winnie the Pooh variant in order to make sure that that we are not targeting Xi Jinping, who definitely does not look like Winnie the Pooh. 100% does not look like Winnie the Pooh. Okay, so we don't know anything about this virus. Okay, the only thing that we know about Omicron is that it has more spike proteins, which means that it is more transmissible and may evade whatever vax immunity was provided for that spike protein. Okay, by the way, what the studies tend to show is that natural immunity has a broader spectrum of disease prevention than does vaccine immunity, according to the Israeli studies, specifically because the vaccines really target only one spike protein, whereas natural immunity can cover more than one. It covers a sort of a gamut. Okay, so here is Dr. Anthony Fauci, the greatest of all doctors. And he says, well, you know, the big risk here is that it appears more transmissible. Yes, we know. I don't care. I assumed once I assume 100% of people are either going to get immunity through natural immunity or vaccines, there's no more than 100%. There's not 101% of humans. Okay, it doesn't work that way. So once I've already made that assumption, you can't scare me by telling me that more people are going to get it. I know everybody's going to get it. I'm aware. And by the way, Pfizer has already come out and they said, oh yeah, by the way, we can rework the vaccines pretty quickly. So if it turns out that this does evade immunity in some severe way, within 100 days, we can rework the Pfizer vaccine in order to generate new immunity. Anyway, here's Anthony Fauci trying to freak you out about the transmissibility of this disease.
It has the molecular characteristics that would strongly suggest that it would be more transmissible. It has a bunch of mutations, a disturbingly large number of mutations in the spike protein, which is the business end of the virus, which really binds, particularly in one particular component of that spike that binds to the receptors in your body, in your nose, in your nasopharynx, and in your lung. The mutations would strongly suggest that it would be more transmissible and that it might evade some of the protection of monoclonal antibodies and convalescent plasma and perhaps even antibodies that are induced by vaccine.
Okay, but here is the thing. If you evade the antibodies that are induced by the vaccine, that doesn't mean that you don't have T cell and B cell memory that can still help your body know how to fight this thing. And also, we have therapeutics coming online. So here's the question for Anthony Fauci. There he is scaring the crap out of everybody, scaring the pants out of everybody, right? They might evade the vaccines. Okay, one, what are we talking about? Are we talking about evading the vaccines so far as infection? Or are we talking about evading the vaccines so far as the hospitalization and death rate? Again, the only person I have heard who knows anything about the hospitalizations and deaths is the South African doctor who discovered this thing, who said it's causing mild disease. Why is everyone freaking out? But I'm going to listen to Anthony Fauci. Okay, so then Anthony Fauci is asked, does this cause more severe disease? He's like, I don't know. I don't know is not good enough for you to lock down the entire society again, especially because it didn't work the first time. Even, by the way, if it did cause higher rates of hospitalization and death, you would have to explain why lockdowns are the solution to that. Because they weren't the first time. Sweden didn't lock down, and Sweden now has the 56th highest death per million rate. Okay, everyone's ripping on Sweden. Sweden did better than most of y'all, all y'all. Here's Anthony Fauci again, admitting he doesn't know if this causes more death.
Do we know if it causes more severe disease?
Great question, George, and we don't know that. In fact, we were on the phone with our South African colleagues who have been incredibly good about being so transparent about what's going on there on Friday, and we're meeting with them again today, a little bit later on in a couple of hours, to try and find out if the cases that they've identified that clearly are caused by this variant, what is the level of severity in that? Hopefully it would be light, but South Africa has a relatively small proportion of the population that's vaccinated. So you got to take that into the equation when you're trying to figure out where this virus is really going and what its impact is going to be.
Okay, so in other words, you have given us like the wrong information. You just want to scare the living daylights out of us. I hope you enjoyed that clip from the Ben Shapiro Show. If you did, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you stay up to date with all our future content.